Hi everyone, welcome to this review of the Wellington market update for April 2020 versus April 2019. My name's Adam Coburn here at Lowe & Co. Obviously April 2020 was an exceptional month, very unusual month because we were essentially closed down. We were in lockdown, so it'll be interesting to see exactly what impact this has on the data. So let's kick off. Basically, the market so far is remaining very strong and new listings are slow to come to market. So if we look first at the number of new listings coming on, this is a very unusual situation because the new listings as provided by realestate.co, the website, they actually said the data was so small, the number of new listings was so low that they would not publish it. So leading up to April, up to the end of March, the new listings volume was down already, down 21% in March, but as to what happened in April, we actually can't be certain in the Wellington region because the numbers were so very low. We do have, however, this graph here which shows the number of new listings in April for the whole country. So I'm interested to see here, you can see that the number of new listings was trucking along quite at normal sort of levels right up to towards the end of March, where level 4 was announced to be coming in place in a couple of days, and then it absolutely fell off a cliff. Once level 4 started, and during level 4, there were very few new listings in the market at all across the country. Hardly surprising, very difficult to sell property without people being able to see it. That's obvious. And then once level 3 was starting, we started to see the number of new listings start to come back again. And this indeed mirrors what we've seen in other overseas countries. For example, in China, they came out of lockdown well before pretty much anyone else, and we're seeing new listings coming on in these locations slowly as the lockdown is lifted, and they do not increase back up to pre-lockdown levels quickly. They slowly come to the market from there and gradually build up over a period of months. And so there are some people out there I know I'm speaking to who are saying we're thinking there's going to be this huge flood of new listings coming to the market as a result perhaps of people undergoing hardship or losing jobs or businesses losing revenue and so on. But in actual fact, what we're seeing is, in the short term at least, the very opposite of that, because we've got government grants, interest rates are very low, the vast majority of people haven't lost their jobs and the vast majority of people haven't had businesses go under, and so in actual fact what we're seeing is some vendors who were planning to bring their property to the market reconsidering because there is so much uncertainty and they're concerned as to what the market might be like, and they actually hold their property back off the market. So in actual fact, we're seeing very low levels of listings coming to the market at the moment. So it's the exact opposite of what buyers want. And indeed, there are 6 weeks worth of buyers who've been wanting to buy that have come to the market as the lockdown has been lifted. And in actual fact, we are seeing the market is very busy indeed for decent quality properties. In terms of sale price absolutely unaffected, certainly up to the end of April 2020. This is not altogether surprising. Perhaps the impact, or any impact, if there is to be any, hasn't come through yet. But price growth to the end of April 2020 versus 2019, up 19%. This is not slowing down. If anything, price growth in the last 3 to 6 months has actually been accelerating compared to the 12 or 18 months before that. So price is still growing very strong to the end of April 2020. The number of days taken to sell, as you can see there, we were slowly increasing the duration to sell property in Wellington, and over the last 12 months or so, that has started to come down again, perhaps fueled by lower interest rates, fewer listings coming to the market, so supply was remaining very tight. Overall, 31 days in April 2020 versus 32 days in April 2019, about the same, but certainly the trend in the last 12 months has been a gradual lessening of the duration taken to sell property in Wellington. How many sales are taking place? Again, now this is where it gets very interesting, and this is obvious that in April, the number of sales that took place in Wellington absolutely fell off a cliff. 115 in April 2020 versus 690 in April 2019, a drop of 83%. Hardly surprising, very few sales took place while the market was essentially closed down. And I strongly suspect the sales that did take place in April took place largely as a result of activity in March. People saw the property in March, it was on the market, but it didn't get sold until April. So it'll be very interesting to see the numbers bounce back from there and how quickly they bounce back. As I said, evidence from overseas suggests that will come back, but not right up to pre-lockdown levels immediately. The inventory on the market, we're still definitely undersupplied, reasonably consistent with how levels we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. No great change there, and in fact, compared to 12 months ago, down slightly. So still remains a very, very tight market out there in Wellington. And the number of new listings, or the number of listings, sorry, overall on the main website, or one of the main websites, Trade Me, of course, 1,634 versus 1,751. So the number of listings available in total is less than a year ago. And again, you can see that from that red line there, which is the 6-month moving average. We were hovering sort of between 1,500 and 2,000 for a number of years there throughout this tight period, and in the last 6 months or so, it has gone even lower than that again. So again, it'll be interesting to see what happens as we come out of the COVID response. Again, I went through this last month, so I won't dwell on this very long, but in terms of what's going to happen now, Tony Alexander reckons there's a few negatives for the real estate market, and there are 3 in particular there that I have highlighted in red that I believe will not affect Wellington nearly to the degree that they will elsewhere, which would suggest that the Wellington market is not likely to suffer or be under as much pressure from these negatives as the other locations in the country. That's job losses. We have a very, very stable job market here in Wellington. Short-term net migration stalling, while our economy is not driven by tourism particularly, and a pullback from the regions, that doesn't impact the cities, of course, negatively. So these things would suggest that the negatives pressing on the market are not going to impact Wellington as much as they will elsewhere. And on the positive side of things, higher net term migration, ultimately, once we get out of this, once New Zealand is perceived as or when New Zealand is perceived to have handled this very well as a safe place to be, it will improve the attractiveness of New Zealand as a place to come to live to. Less outbound travel. Very few people are going to be considering now going overseas. They would prefer to stay put where it's safe, perhaps. Some travel plans will be cancelled, and so on. And reduced new developments as a result of finance tightening up on the ability for developers to produce new townhouses and new apartments. This will tighten the supply. And so overall, my assessment, and indeed Tony Alexander's assessment also, long-term fundamentals for real estate will remain strong, and in particular in Wellington, I think the negative aspects will not impact the Wellington market nearly to the degree that they might do elsewhere in the country. So here are some of my predictions. Some buyers, no doubt about it, the ones who don't have to buy, they will hold back because there are uncertain times ahead and they're not sure, and when people are uncertain, a certain segment of the population just sits on their hands and they sit back and wait to see what happens. So sales volumes will fall. Some vendors as well will hold back, so this will act to tighten supply, at least in the short term, and so new listings will remain lower. So as a result of a generally thinner market, the duration to sell will increase. It will on average take a bit longer probably to sell property in Wellington. Will prices fall? Will rents fall? Perhaps, but if so, certainly less so than in most other locations around the country. So Wellington's a very defensive location as far as the real estate market goes, and the long-term fundamentals remain strong in Wellington. So if you are a buyer, if you're thinking of buying and you're worried about what's going to happen, there might be a few bumps in the road. My opinion is if you find the right place, if you can afford it, if your stability of income is there, and you're not worried about that side of things, don't worry about a potential small few bumps in the road. In the end of the day, the market is definitely going to retain its strength ultimately and carry on from there. So just get in amongst it if you can indeed afford it, and if you can find the place that suits you. I hope that's useful. It's Adam here at Low & Co. Anything I can help with, feel free to sing out, to check in. Otherwise, I'll be back again hopefully in another